A sequel? I don't think anyone asked for this. But hey, I'll take it. G'day to you peeps and welcome to my personal attempt at reviewing The Evil Within 2. But I'm pretty sure this is gonna go off the rails somehow, so let's underline that I'm going to attempt reviewing this game. So, with that warning out of the way, let's dive into this mess. Literally. Ew. So let's talk about the story. The Evil Within 2 takes place in the good old STEM brain link system from the first game. The evil corporation Mobius that invented the system obviously didn't think that one nightmare was enough to shut down the project and decided to make the virtual town of Union. But instead of Ruvik, the antagonist of the first game, and the brain in a jar being the consciousness that runs STEM, it's now Lily, the daughter of Detective Sebastian Castellanos, the protagonist in both games, in hopes that her innocent mind won't create a nightmare world like Ruvik's. Guess how that turned out. So washed up Sebastian is told by a way improved character model Kidman and bulky G-Man here that the only way to ever get his daughter back is to dive back into STEM and get Lily and fix whatever's broken in there. And this being the Evil Within and all, then of course basically everything's broken. Sebastian finds out his daughter's been nabbed by a serial killer artist guy inside the STEM and now he's gotta chase him down. While I won't spoil too much, then I'll say the story of this game turned out to be way more interesting compared to the original one. But as it turns out, then there are some sweet twists in there that actually makes you wonder what's going on. And not only that, but Sebastian's finally uncovered backstory is actually interesting. He finally has some character instead of just being grumpy, washed up detective man. And to be honest, then the story actually managed to keep me somewhat intrigued for a whole 12 hours. Yep, you heard that right, folks. This is a 12-hour horror game. A 12-hour horror game.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
And I rushed through it. I didn't even explore many of the extra locations in Union, which is in fact another aspect of the sequel I think is a huge improvement. The Evil Within 2 is semi-open world. The story is still linear as ever, but if you want, you can travel all over Union and scavenge for supplies and even new weapons to make the game easier. There's even monsters that are exclusive to explorable areas and that you won't encounter otherwise. But let me just say right now, it's actually refreshing to not only be allowed, but also encouraged to explore a bit instead of squeezing through these very linear corridors of Beacon Asylum. Even simple aspects like the third-person camera just in general work so much better in an open space. And I'm suspecting the big open map is also what made the developers rethink their stamina system, so Sebastian doesn't run out of breath like a 60-year-old with asthma.
Come on! You not you, lady! Oh, this son of a with his slow-ass slowness!
Thank goodness! So in general, a really good way to improve gameplay, even though I did find a part of the map where I could open electric doors and progress really far into it, and only to be met by a "you're supposed to come here later" message in the shape of an immovable, indestructible wooden plank. They also put a lot of focus into improving the stealth mechanic of the game, which in my opinion is a bit weird. The reason stealth works in games like The Last of Us because there's so many places to hide and sneak around, even in the cities. The environment is built for that specific playstyle. But in this game, well, like Union is pretty big, but it's not that big. And of the area there is, it's mostly covered by big open street, suburban style houses and grass. Like the stealth mechanic itself works fine, but the environment doesn't really support that playstyle that well. And the way it looks like they tried to fix this was by plumbing down crates and cars here and there and basically making the enemies blind unless you're close enough to hug them. So if you want a stealth-focused game, make a stealth-focused map. Or at least one with stealth options, such as something simple as climbing through a window. Another thing I'm quite missing in this game is the action. Where's the giant boss fights? Where's the ridiculously huge scenes? What I'm missing is something like the bus scenes from the original game. Because that's what that game was. Horror theme, insane action. And while I do think the sequel is more horror focused instead of action, then like, is it really enough? What I mean is, it's not really a horror-themed action-adventure like the first game, but at the same time it's not really that dark, creepy, or terrifying. To me, it just sort of feels like it doesn't really know if it wants to stay true to the idea of the Evil Within, or if it wants to move on to something more survival horror. And therefore it sort of ends up in this weird blurred line where it's kinda both, but for the same reason, kinda none of them. But in the end, then even though it wasn't either as scary or as action-y as I would have liked, then I still think it's a great game, especially compared to the original. With beautiful scenery, a surprisingly good soundtrack, and with a story and characters that even made me quite emotional at one point. Something I would have never expected from a game like The Evil Within. So if I have to score this game on a scale from 1 to 10, I would rate The Evil Within 2 a 7.5 out of 10. To be honest, I'm very indecisive when it comes to this game, because while it does kind of have that The Evil Within clumsiness to it in the gameplay, then there's so much game to play, and just so much other good stuff there. So I went with the middle ground, 7.5. Remember, this is purely judging from my game experience, and your opinion might be very different. But please, feel free to write in the comments if there's any particular thing I missed, or if you just simply want to share your opinion. But anywho, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all later.